In the last video, part one, we covered what the cyber AI profile is and why it exists. Today, we're going to get into the three focus areas: secure, defend, and thwart. And I want to apply some real world experience to what NIST is asking organizations to do here because the framework is directionally right, but the hard part is always the execution. So let's start with secure. This is around securing AI system components. And I want to talk about what this actually means for a security team trying to operationalize it. NIST is telling you that your AI models, your agents, algorithms, your prompts, and training data are system components that need to be secured like any other critical asset. And I think that framing is exactly right. The problem is most organizations likely haven't caught up yet, but, and I want you to think about it this way. In traditional security, we spent years building asset inventory programs. We built classification frameworks, vulnerability management processes. We know how to do that for servers, endpoints, and applications. But AI components, I can guarantee that most organizations don't have them in their CMDB. They're not in the vulnerability management program. They're not in the third party risk questionnaire. They're essentially unmanaged assets sitting inside environments that are otherwise reasonably well governed. I'm making an assumption that they're well governed. Here's the thing to think about shadow AI that deserves more attention than the draft gives it. Employees aren't waiting for IT to approve AI tools, they're using them every day. Writing assistants, code generators, analytics platforms, you name it. And most of these tools have AI capabilities that nobody in security has reviewed. Every one of those is a potential data exposure, a potential entry point, a potential liability. And I've worked in environments where the speed of business is the priority. And in today's world, I absolutely understand. But ungoverned AI adoption is how you create an attack surface that takes you down and takes you down fast. From a pure attack vector standpoint, the two things I would be pressing my security team on right now are prompt injection and model supply chain integrity. Prompt injection is truly underestimated right now. If you have any LLM based application in your environment and you've not specifically tested for prompt injection, that's a huge gap. An attacker who can manipulate the inputs to your AI system can potentially override all of its instructions, extract data it wasn't supposed to share, or trigger actions the system never should have taken. Your traditional pen testing isn't looking for that, I can guarantee you. Model supply chain is the other big one. When you pull a third party model or a fine tuned open source model, an AI capability embedded in a SaaS platform, you're inheriting whatever risk came with it point blank. Training data integrity, model tampering, backdoors introduced at the supply chain level. Those are real attack vectors right now, and the industry doesn't have mature detection capability for them yet. This is something NIST is right to flag and something your vendor risk program needs to think about. Defend is where I get genuinely excited and also where I think organizations need to be most careful about getting ahead of their governance. The capability that AI brings to defensive security operations is quite real. Behavioral analytics that can detect anomalies that your rule-based systems would simply never catch right now. Threat hunting now happens at a speed and scale that wasn't possible with human analysts alone. Automated response for high volume, low complexity incidents that were eating your security operations team time, those aren't future capabilities. They're available right now, and organizations using them well are getting a real security advantage. But here's my honest take on where the risk lives. The governance around AI assisted security decisions is almost always an afterthought. Teams buy the tool, they integrate it, they turn on the automation, and they never formally answer the question: what is this AI authorized to do on its own, and what requires a human in the loop? The question matters more than most people honestly realize. Because when something goes wrong, and it definitely will, AI systems generate false positives. They drift, they make wrong calls. You need to know exactly where the accountability sits. I've seen mature security organizations struggle to answer that question after the fact. Don't let that be your situation. My take on what defend actually requires operationally comes down to three things. One, you need a formal inventory of every AI assisted tool in your security stack and a defined decision authority matrix for each one. What can it do autonomously? What triggers a human review? Who owns the outcome? Two, you need model validation built into your security operations cadence. AI models degrade over time. The threat landscape shifts, and a model that was performing well 6 months ago, hell, 30 days ago, may be quietly losing effectiveness today. And this is not a set it and forget it technology. It needs active management. And you need your analysts trained not to just use those AI tools, but to challenge them. The worst outcome of AI in the SOC is analysts who treat the model as the authority. Your people need to know when to push back on what the model is telling them. 3. Now, Thwart is the one I think has the most urgency, and the one where I believe the draft could go further than it actually does. NIST frames Thwart as building resilience against AI enabled cyber attacks. I think the framing is right, but I want to be specific about what those attacks actually look like because I think abstract threat language it doesn't really drive the right response. AI generated phishing has fundamentally changed the economics of social engineering. Attackers can now generate hyper personalized spear phishing at a scale that was never operationally feasible before. They're pulling public data, LinkedIn profiles, company filings, job postings, press releases, and using language models to craft targeted communications that are generally hard to distinguish from legitimate ones. Now, there's OSINT tools that have done that before. It's just the volume and the quality have both increased exponentially. Your awareness training needs to evolve to reflect that reality. Deepfake fraud is not a future scenario. Synthetic audio and video of executives have already been used to authorize fraudulent transactions. And if your organization relies on voice or video confirmation for financial authorizations without a secondary verification mechanism, that's a huge gap. AI assisted vulnerability discovery is compressing the exploitation timeline in a way that most patch management programs just weren't designed to handle. Attackers are using AI to find vulnerabilities and generate exploits faster than the traditional disclosure to patch window really accounts for. And your risk tolerance around unpatched critical vulnerabilities really need to factor in that the threat velocity has changed permanently. And here's my broader take on Thwart and where I think it pushes the conversation in the right direction. Resilience is absolutely the right word. The goal is not just detection, it's whether your organization can take a hit from an AI enabled attack and continue operating. That's the age old business continuity question. It's a crisis communication question, right? This is a board level risk question, not just a security team question. If your tabletop exercise hasn't or does not include an AI enabled attack scenario, that's the gap I personally would close first because not because it's required by the framework, because that's actually what your adversaries are already operating in. And you need to know how your organization responds to that threat before it happens for real. One thing from the draft I want to make sure lands before we close. These are the priority tiers. Every subcategory in the cyber A profile and the cyber AI profile, sorry, is tagged as high, medium, or high, moderate, foundational. My advice to any security leader looking at this framework is to use that prioritization as your starting point and resist the urge to try to address everything at once. I want you to focus on the high priority first, assign owners, set a 90-day accountability window, then move to moderate. The organizations that make real progress against frameworks like this are the ones that pick a lane, they execute it, and then they build from there. The ones that try to boil the ocean tend to stall out and end up with a gap analysis that, well, it never gets acted on. All right, so there's three things I want you to take away from this video. Start your AI inventory now, not next quarter, this week. You can't govern what you haven't found in your environment, and you can't secure what you haven't inventoried. Look at your incident response plan with fresh eyes and ask whether it accounts for an AI enabled attack. And don't just upload it to Claude and ask. Just, you know, come on. I want you to run a tabletop with an AI attack scenario. I want you to make it realistic. Use the threat vectors we talked about today. And look, I'm confident you're going to find something your team didn't know was there. Now, in the next video, we're going to go into the NIST CSF 2.0 and exactly how the cyber AI profile maps to all six functions. And we're going to spend real time on govern, and that's the function that was brand new in 2.0, and that's the one that holds this whole framework together. See you next time.